Now that we have an understanding of consumer surplus and producer surplus, let's look at the total surplus generated at equilibrium in a market. The market we're looking at here is the market for the mowing of lawns. We've got a supply curve and demand curve. Represented on each of those curves. And remember, we can look at one person on the demand curve, say that's Juan, and Juan is willing to pay $22 to get his lawn mowed. We can look at Forrest, and Forrest is willing to pay $13 to get his lawn mowed. We can look at the supply curve, and Abe is willing to mow a lawn for $2, whereas D is willing to mow a lawn for $8 and not less. So how do we look at total surplus in this market? Well, at equilibrium, the price is $10. So we can add up all of the surpluses on the consumer side. Juan's getting $12, Tupac $9, Thurl is $6, and Forrest is getting $3 consumer surplus. And the sum of all the consumer surplus is $30. If we look on the producer side, Abe gets $8 of producer surplus, B's getting $6, Cecil $4, and D $2, so producer surplus adds up to $20. So total surplus in this market at equilibrium is the area underneath the demand curve above the price plus the area above the supply curve underneath the price. It's 30 plus 20, or $50 worth of total surplus. Now, what happens if we intervene in the market? Oftentimes, we set different prices away from equilibrium because we think the equilibrium outcome isn't the desirable outcome. For example, we might set a maximum price. Suppose we thought $10 was too much to be paid. Well, we might say there's a maximum price that can't be paid above for mowing of lawns. And what does that mean? Well, suppose we said the maximum price for lawn mowing is $4. That would imply that only 2 lawns would be mowed, because only Abe and B are willing to supply lawn mowing services for $4 or less. Cecil, D, and D don't want to mow lawns anymore because the price is too low. So the market is going to be such that the price is going to be $4 and the quantity is going to be $2. Now, Abe and B are still producing, and they're still getting some producer surplus, just not as much as they did before. If we look at the consumer side, Juan is far better off. Juan was willing to pay $22, at equilibrium was paying $10, but now is only paying $4. So consumer surplus for Juan has risen tremendously, and the same is true for Tupac. But Thurl and Forrest and Cecil and D, who used to be producing and consuming in this market, are no longer doing so. So we can see that the total surplus has changed. It used to incorporate all of the area underneath the supply and demand curves in this big triangle, and now it's only this area here. And so there's some lost surplus in this market when there's a maximum price set. It's called a price ceiling. If we'd set a price minimum or a price floor, we would see a similar situation. If the price couldn't go below $19, Juan and Tupac would still be willing to buy lawn mowing services, and Abe and B would still be producing it, but they'd just be getting a much higher producer surplus than they were before, and the consumer surplus for Juan and Tupac would have shrunk. And all these services out here that used to be produced for Thurl and Forrest and by Cecil and D don't exist anymore, so we have some lost surplus. So when we look at the total surplus, it's lower in a market where we have either a minimum or a maximum price than it was at equilibrium.